Welcome to another episode of Cyrus's podcast. I am stoked to have my boy Bo on the podcast. Bo, what is happening, bro?
Good morning, buddy. What's going on? Thanks for having me.
Dude, I'm stoked to have you, brother. You are all the way out in Breckenridge?
Breckenridge, Colorado. Yeah, and it's snowing right now in May, which is crazy.
That's insane. Dude, okay, so Bo, you're an absolute killer in the industry. We met recently at an event that we spoke at together, and I said, "Hey, I got to interview this guy. You have an interesting story. I want to share kind of where you started, how you got into, where you were before real estate, how you got into real estate, and then go from there to what you've been doing and where you're going, right? Like, I think your story is super inspiring, and I want to share that. And as I'm talking about that, I look at your whiteboard behind you, and you're looking at 200 million in team sales, 100 million boat sales. I mean, you got all of these goals on there. Where let's just start from before you got into real estate. Like, what were you doing before real estate? How did you get into real estate?
Yeah, man. So it's a long journey, right? I mean, as we know, and you and I connected so well a few weeks back down at that event that we did, just because of it, I feel like we have a similar story. But from the beginning, I knew I was a people person, right? And I knew how to build relationships, and that's important. But, starting at the beginning, I grew up in Florida in the Gulf Coast, at a very, very vacation oriented town, similar to Breckenridge and Vail out here. But I never been to Colorado in my life. I didn't know a soul in Colorado. So when I was in Florida, I knew I wanted to get away. I mean, most of my friends were doing beach chair jobs and working restaurant seasonal jobs, very much in the now, like,
Yeah,
not really ever planning for something. Um, and then the ones that my true friends that did get away, they went to more of like, Florida State and University of Florida and Ole Miss and Alabama and really the kind of Greek life stuff. And that wasn't really my thing either. I've always kind of been a lone wolf, but very much an extrovert where I can connect easily with them. But in that aspect, I just, for what it's worth, I really just wanted to get away. I knew I needed to get away. I knew I needed a change. Um, so I actually, when I graduated high school, they kept me on. I worked at a golf course down in Florida. Um, and it was 4 courses in one little resort area, and they asked me to stay on an extra year. And I started out as a bag boy, literally putting on bags on people's carts, making tips, to, a few years later and staying an extra year after graduating high school to running the clubhouses, setting up all the golf tournaments, really organizing some big events and putting a lot of, responsibility on me, which was awesome at 18, 19 years old. Um, so at that point, I knew I was really good at people again, like I said, and I knew I wanted more. So I got away. And to be honest, I got a dog, Bogey. He was an Alaskan Malamute, got him at 6 weeks old. Um, Not to go back too far, but my father passed when I was younger. I'm an only child, no brothers, no sisters. Me and my mom were best friends, and she never remarried and never really dated much, and she got diagnosed with cancer and just recently passed. And I'll get into that a little bit later, but because it's definitely part of my story. But
yeah,
anyways, I got a dog, Bogey, and I got him in North Carolina, and he lived the whole first year of his life in Florida on the beach as a husky. And knowing that I was going to move out west at that point, I had it in my mind that I was definitely coming.
yeah,
I met a buddy randomly at the golf course. It's about really, leaning into every situation and really just being open to it, right? So I met this guy, and I don't think I really manifested it at that point because I didn't really know Colorado, but I met this guy, and he literally, we have a little vacation house that we've since sold down in Florida, but they're like these little villas on the golf course, and there's little pods. There's like 3 or 4 of them in each little enclave. And he
yeah.
lived in the next one over, and I never knew it. And then he the University of Colorado, and we were the same age. So he invited me out to CU Boulder. Never been here in my life. And I slept on his couch for like 3 or 4 days. and had the best time of my life. And at that point, real estate was not on my mind at all. I mean, I was doing the golf tournament, more hospitality management, that type of thing. Um, Playing golf every day, literally, and more or less a beach bum. I mean, to be honest with you. And I knew I definitely wanted a change, and I didn't want to follow my friends' directions and their path, really. I'll tell you a funny story about that because one of my best friends is actually in real estate, killing it in where we grew up, but went to Florida State and got a master's in real estate, which is funny
Oh
because
wow.
I ended up going to college for one semester and took market share in less than 24 months in my market. But um, to really understand my story, to get to Colorado, I met this guy, right? And I didn't know him from sin. I never met him in my life. And just one thing after the next, one thing after the next, leaning into situations. I knew I wanted to come here. So I applied to CU and didn't get in actually at first. So I went to Front Range Community College, which was the community college right down the street, and ended up getting into CU. So I went to Front Range for like half a semester. I remember I had to do like a couple classes to finish, and then I could get in and transfer over. So I ended up making a big deal out of it to transfer into CU. And long story short, I ended up going for one full semester at CU. That's it, and then I dropped out. I
Did
found I
you did you when you were going from Florida to Colorado, did you feel like the only way and you were what, 18, 19?
I was 19, 20 because I moved out here at 20 because I remember I spent my 21st birthday in Colorado because I've been out here about 11 years now.
Yeah, so did you want to go to college, like always want to go to college, or did you feel you
No,
needed to go to
I
college to move?
no, not at all. To me, I felt like college at that point in that moment of my life was an escape or a way to get
Yeah,
away. I guess if that makes sense. So yeah, I guess to your point. But I immediately knew that it wasn't for me. So like, I believe that I'm a serial entrepreneur at heart. I know that I'm an entrepreneur. I always have been, when I came out here to kind of tell my story in Colorado, when I went to CU, I never was an academic person. Like even, I mean, I could tell you a funny story going way back, but like in high school, I mean, my math teacher, I mean, I used to go play basketball with him. I was on the varsity basketball team and captain of the golf team in high school. But no joke. I mean, I can't make this up. I won't disclose names, but let's just say I only have um freshman algebra college or freshman algebra um level math. That's it. And I ended up passing like all 4 years of high school math with this guy because he just liked me so much. So, I've never been a school guy. I've always been more of like a people person and just building relationships, right? So I've never needed school. I remember I've never learned anything in school, like to be honest with you. So to your point, I felt like in that moment it was a reason for me to leave maybe and try to
yeah,
prove to maybe my mom at that point or my grandmother at that point that I could maybe do it. I mean, I think at some point my mom was pushing me so hard just to have a like a diploma framed, like a degree framed, like in her house. Like that's all she wanted was something from me because she went to University of Arkansas and then this private Williams Woods College in Missouri for extra for her master's and did all this blah
yeah.
blah blah. So I guess like at some point she wanted that. So I tried to, but I knew right away it wasn't for me. So when I moved out here, literally, it was me and my dog Bogey. I moved out here with a U-Haul trailer, and that's it. I knew that one guy. Ended up sleeping in a guest room he had, rented a room for a couple months, and really just found my way. When I dropped out of CU, that's when I found Breckenridge. Never came to Breck in my life. Never even heard of it. Never skied here. Nothing. No family vacations. Nothing. I actually learned how to ski or snowboard on the East Coast in North Carolina. Um, and I really was very new to that. I mean, I just
Yeah.
started it in high school or like later in high school, actually. I'd only gone a few times when I moved to Colorado. But that first year, I remember living in Boulder. I drove to Breck, which was, 2-hour drive, and I snowboarded almost 100 times that year. I remember I went over 90 times
Wow.
that year. So I dedicated myself because I loved it. It was cool. But doing that, it allowed me to discover Breck, right? And truly the rest is history. I moved up here with nothing. I mean, I was literally living in my car. I met a guy who became a good buddy of mine who, has since faded out of life, unfortunately, but you find who your real friends are. And that's another thing too that I talk to you about is
Yeah.
inner circle and the people you're around. And it's hard to be out here in this vacation town because I am so alone, and I am such a people person, right? So, to be honest, like I don't have a core group of friends here, because there just really isn't quality people, to be honest. That it's more of a transit town where people come in to get away from life, and they
Yeah.
kind of want to escape reality, work for the ski resort for 6 months, go to the bars every night, and they're called ski bums, to be honest with you. But I met a good friend who, to be honest, was a ski bum. And, he lived, probably 45 minutes from Breck in the middle of nowhere in a cabin in the woods. And he gave me a room, and I just worked my way in. And that's why the story's so interesting, because I literally drove to Breck. My first job ever was a valet boy in Breck. I did valet. And I remember at that point, I was still kind of trying to take some classes at this local college called Colorado Mountain College, tiny little
Yeah.
school, to maybe finish, but never happened. I remember I didn't even go that semester. I think I just signed up and start taking classes. But um, anyways, at one point, there's this pass, a 14,000 or 12,000 foot mountain pass. And I in the cabin was on the other side of this pass, right? So I was driving this pass, like think Tahoe or anything in California, like going over, a pretty treacherous
Yeah.
pass. And like it's the Continental Divide. And I used to drive it going to valet at 5 a.m. at the morning shift, and then come back and then go to night classes sometimes at CMC, the Colorado Mountain College, in the
Yeah.
afternoon. So I would drive past, there back, 4 times a day, and slowly work my way into town. And then eventually, when I got into Breck, I remember, I mean, it's a crazy story, but when I got into Breck, I mean, I was sleeping in my car for the first few weeks. And I mean, it is what it is, right? It's my story. And then I got enough money saved up to where I had my first studio, 1 bedroom apartment. And then I was driving around one day trying to figure out what I wanted to do. And knowing that I wasn't, never in the restaurant business, not working for the ski slopes, not doing anything like that, um, decided that I would do property management, So I was driving around, no joke, and I looked up and saw this property management company, and a couple of them were hiring, and I did put out some resumes. I had a pretty decent resume. I mean, working at the golf course, and had some decent connections I'd built at that
Yeah.
time for some recommendation letters and stuff. And you got to learn how to do that, right? I mean, definitely, try to use what you have. And so I did have that, but I went in to this one property management company that was not hiring. I just drove by, no help wanted sign or nothing like that. They were not asking for it. They were not hiring. And I remember like it was yesterday, and his name's Rich, and he set me down, and 2 hours later, we're still there talking, and he created a job position right there for me on the spot, their first ever assistant manager. It was pretty cool. And as a property manager, I knew I wanted freedom. I knew I wanted my own schedule. I knew I didn't want someone breathing down my neck. And that
Yeah.
job, you're on your own, you're checking on properties. If you're good at it, and you work your way up, typically you have your own manager's car, your own manager's apartment, that type of stuff, because we're HOA management. It wasn't,
Yeah.
nightly rental stuff. Um, so I worked my way up, man. I mean, that was my first, real job in Breck that I kind of say allowed me to do what I'm doing now, because it gave me opportunity. It allowed me to assess the market, learn the market, and really dive headfirst in. And that's kind of the next, take on
So
how my
when you
career really happened.
when you started at this property management company, you started working there. When did you decide I'm going to go get my real estate license and actually transact? Was it very soon after you started at this company? Was it down the line? What was the trigger point that
It
made
was
you
down the
decide?
line. It was down the line for sure. I got into the company. I was with them for 4 years, I think.
Wow.
And
Okay.
I grew really quick to where I went from assistant manager that they created this role for, to a primary manager with a manager's truck, free apartment, manager's credit card, everything on salary. And for Breck, I mean, to be honest, at this point at 20, 22, 23 years old, um, I was I was a primary position manager with guys that have been doing the same job for 20 years. I mean, it was
Yeah.
unbelievable. I was working with guys that were in their 60s that had been there forever. And that's complacency. And I just don't believe in that. They were complacent. They were happy where they were. The boss took care of them. And it was just crazy to see. I had a free place to live, and, I was skiing, and, I had a free truck, and I was driving it down to Denver whenever I wanted to, and all over the place. And, my boss would let me take the company card out and buy myself lunch and dinners all the time. And, a lot of people would think that was
Yeah.
a happy life, right? Um, but at that point, I felt like that's when I knew I wanted more, So I feel like, in essence, in my life, and I feel like that's how we also relate to, we both always want more. And that's kind of how, like, I ended up in Colorado, because I wanted more. And then I had the property management company, but then I wanted more. Or I had the property management job, but then I wanted more.
Yep.
So I went to Rich, but, in all due respect to him, I mean, he made it to where, I could do this. I mean, he gave me the foundation. So I do believe people need to, find doors that open for them, but then take them, but then really do leverage people's relationships if they care about you and you care about them. I mean, it's all about who you know, really. And I didn't know him from anything, but 5 years down the road, and looking back now, this is in the past, but he would do anything for me. I mean, I could tell you crazy
Yeah.
stories. He bought me a snowmobile. Literally bought me a snowmobile because I wanted a snowmobile, because I wanted to get into that lifestyle out here. And I paid him back from every paycheck. It was funny things like that. But I went to Rich and I said, "Hey, bud, I want real estate. I want this." And I started doing it. So he said, "Bo," he said, "I know this guy, go talk to him." And he's one of the first real estate agents in Breckenridge. I mean, he's in his 90s now, and he's still active licensed, which is awesome.
Wow.
He developed one of the first big multifamily developments out here, and it's pretty cool. Yeah, he's still around. And I went to him, and literally he said, "Bo, there's two ways to do real estate." He said, "Either go be someone's assistant and do whatever they say, or dive headfirst in and don't look back." And I literally took that advice, like, literally. And I dove headfirst in. I didn't look back. And there were some things that I did that I probably shouldn't have done, as far as I kept my other job. I really focused on real estate so hard, where I kind of let the other job slide a little, if you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that was apparent. And my boss saw that, and he brought me in and said, "Bo, like, what's going on?" And I said, "Real estate just took on quicker than I ever thought." I mean, I got my first deal 2 weeks in, because I was knocking on doors while I was on the clock at my other job, in between, checking on properties. I
Yeah.
mean, it was stuff like that, man. I would have my little elevator pitch down to where I was driving around the property management truck selling real estate. And
Yeah.
so when I sold my first couple of deals, the boss just brought me in and said, "Bo, what's going on? Your properties, the property checklists aren't getting done anymore." And I said, "Hey, bud, this thing just took off quicker than I ever thought, and it's my passion, and I'm just so happy I found it, and it's my purpose in life. I truly know that." And he said, "Go for it," and he wasn't upset. His wife was kind of upset that they lost me, but ultimately today they're one of the oldest HOA management companies in town. They're still in business in Breckenridge, and I sell a lot of their properties. So if you sell a property that has an HOA, typically you have to call the HOA to get the documents. So let's just say I love calling that management company, and they hear my voice knowing that I'm number one in Breck now, and I never, I didn't fail, let's say.
Yeah.
Um,
That's
but yeah,
awesome.
so yeah, but first year in the business, sold 17 homes, did like 20 million in sales my first year. No mentor, no hand me out. The only advice I ever got was that one advice from that old man, and that's it, and I truly
And
never looked back.
what do you think the difference maker is from someone that gets in the business and has some success, and someone that gets in the business and has major success like you had? What do you feel that was a big difference maker for you?
Honestly, I think it comes down to consistency and just never giving up. I've had so much happen to me. So, funny story. I failed the real estate test 5 times, passed it on the sixth. I mean, there's things that I could talk for hours with you about, and I don't want to skip over the good stuff, because I really want to tell my story. I really want to help people. I want people to take tidbits of advice and little things and little nuggets from this conversation. Um, but something that's important that I want y'all to know is, it took me 6 times to pass the real estate exam. And the week that I passed it, my mother got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer and got told she had 6 months to live. And I met my now ex-fiance. So all three of these things happened, crazy things of my life, moments of my life happened within 5 days of each other. So, it was insane. So, when I sold those 17 homes that first year in the business, I was madly in love with a girl that now is non-existent in my life, and we can talk about that, because I feel like that could have helped me, because I had a rock. I really did have someone to go home to, and it was good. It was a good feeling. It was good while it lasted, but it got really bad, and we can
Yeah.
talk about that. But I was also my mother's main caregiver, and I was taking her to chemo, I was taking her to radiation, I was taking her to clinical trials, and that was it. We didn't have anyone. My mother moved out to Colorado. Just so you guys can kind of understand the story, she moved to Colorado from Florida to be closer to me. Before she got diagnosed with cancer, it's just she got diagnosed here in Colorado, and then here, unfortunately, passed here in Colorado. But she came out here just to be with me. I mean, she, to be honest, hated it here. She didn't like the cold. She was a beach girl through and through. Um, so it was a very interesting story. So, while this was all happening, I was literally taking care of my dying mother, watching her, disintegrate in front of me, and then went through one of the most craziest breakups of my life, man. I mean, I was engaged. I was with this girl for almost 5 years. I was engaged for a year. And it was the most craziest thing of my life. I mean, I bought her a car. We lived together, and
Yeah.
obviously got her a ring. So,
So my question for you is how what okay, I'm gonna rewind and then I'm gonna come back. So you didn't pass the real estate exam. It took you 5 times, 6 times to pass it, 5 times you failed. What made you keep going when you kept failing on that real estate exam?
oh, well, easy, because I just don't give up. I mean, at this point, I know that I will never give up, truly, right? I mean, I've had so many crossroads to where I think the majority would and will. So I hope that I can personally push someone to not, because I know that I'm programmed not to. I mean, at this point, I've been through so much turmoil to where I could tell you stories where, like, at the real estate exam, I mean, I'm not really good at test taking. I'm good with people. I'm good being out in the streets. And I remember I would go into the bathroom and have it written on my thigh, like, and just like, and because I would take it so many times where I'd miss, like, I would know the stuff that I would, repeatedly miss on. So then, whatever, I can say that I cheated, it doesn't matter. But, like, the point is, like, I never took it serious, because I feel like that the test in itself is just to trick people to get you to not get into the game. You know what I mean? Because I've met
Yeah.
multiple agents now that, either take 6 months to do it, or they just get busy with other stuff and don't ever pass it, or, etc. But yeah, man, I never, like, I got angry. So I remember, like, I would go to the testing center, I would fail by, like, whatever, two, like, nothing, like 2 or 3 points sometimes, and get so pissed. And then they would not let me reschedule. They would make you wait 24 hours to reschedule. And then I live 2 hours away from the testing center in Denver to Breck. And so they'd be so booked up, it would take me like another week to take the test again.
Oh my gosh.
It was an unbelievable process, man. So the six fails took me like 8 weeks
Yeah.
to actually, like, get my license. So it was a whole story in itself, to where I truly never gave up. I remember going to that parking lot in the exam center, and, like, 2 or 3 hours before, and just sit there and just memorize the shit, and then just still fuck up somehow.
Yeah.
you know
Well, and I think that's so important to share because there's a lot of people that are in those shoes, right? Like there's a lot of agents that I know. I have one of my agents that ended up absolutely killing it, and he failed it 7 times before he got his license. But everybody's like gets so discouraged when you don't pass it on the first time. But at the end of the day, like that's okay. And now we're looking at where you started, you know, not being able to pass the exam, taking 6 tries to pass the exam, to now being the number one agent in Breck, and now, then you have you got your license, and then you meet this amazing girl, and then now you got your mom that gets diagnosed. Like during that time, you're in the build mode of your business, right? You're in the build mode of hey, I got my license, now I could run, right? Versus just waiting to run, waiting for the starting gates. Now you're able to run, but then all of this happens in your life. How did you how did you deal with that?
You know what I say, man, and I have a few things that I say, and I'll believe by this for the rest of my life. I think you got to go through life picking up on certain things that you'll never forget, right? I mean, most stuff goes through one ear and out the other, but there's some things that I'll never forget. And I do know that I'm very good at shoving shit down deeper and deeper. I mean, that's just what I've always said. I mean, to be honest with you, I know how to process what I know how to process, and that's real estate and that's helping people. And everything else for me, maybe I'm not good at it, but I'm also really good at turning it off. So, for me, like, and I'm not saying that I'm proud of these moments, but I will say there's no regrets. I mean, there's been times where I was showing property when I should have been with my mother and whatever, and we could talk about that all day, right? Where I could literally come to tears on that, choosing real estate over a situation, right? Let's just say that.
Yeah.
But I've always put my clients in real estate, really, truly before anything. And I don't have any regrets ultimately. I was able to dive into this business head first, make a substantial amount of money quick, and I can be honest with you now, I've made millions and I've gone broke. You know what I mean? And that's okay because I was able to check my mother's bucket list off. I mean, I was flying her private everywhere she wanted to go. I was doing everything she wanted to do. I took care of everything that she needed to take care of on her personal side of things, where I know there's no regrets, right? And like we did have those magical moments, but ultimately it's tough, right? And I think for me, getting into the business, I knew what I wanted and I did
Yeah.
it. And I really didn't let anything get in the way. You know what I mean? Like literally nothing, not even death, to be honest with you. I mean, I say at this point, like, I'm never gonna give up, honestly, until I do die. My father was
Yeah.
the same way. I mean, he died in his late 80s. I wasn't supposed to happen. I was an oops baby. I have a half brother who's in his 70s, who's a whole nother story. And we're not close at all. But he literally worked the day he died. So
Yeah. So it's what I'm hearing is you I feel like you don't have regrets, and this is a conversation that we had before, right? But it's because yes, maybe you should have been XYZ, and maybe someone said you should have been in this space or with your mom, what so on and so forth at those times. But then because you sacrificed or because you put in the work at that time, you were able to do everything that your mother wanted to happen. But you had to see that long-term vision, which I feel like you're very good at seeing. Okay, hey, if I do this and I really focus, I'm gonna win down the line, right?
yes, yep.
Um, and now, was that always something that you had, or was there someone or something in your life that made you start thinking ahead like that?
I think, to be honest, at some point in my like middle school, high school years, I was very lazy. I mean, I played sports, high school sports, um, but smoked a ton of pot and like didn't have any like real goals, let's say.
Yeah,
When I started learning goals, that was important to me because I can sit here and say every goal I've set for myself, I've hit, I've accomplished. Those goals
yeah,
on that whiteboard will be accomplished. Like everything I've written down, I've done. And so to me, I want to say I've learned the power of manifestation and I know it's real to the point where I mean, I could put chills on people's arms and I've done it telling them stories to where I've thought about developers, and within 6 to 8 months I have one of the developer's sons in the elevator with me at the Plaza Hotel in New York City. I mean, it's crazy,
yeah,
bro. I mean, I've done some pretty cool shit. So I know manifestation's real. I know manifesting things real. For me, I've learned it takes about 6 to 8 months of thinking before it starts to happen. But no, I mean, for me, like, I just, I always knew what I wanted. I knew I had to set goals once I learned to set goals. But, to your point, I mean, it wasn't always, up and down for me. I
yeah,
mean, my story, I mean, to be honest, I did all this, and this is kind of crazy in itself because it's kind of the way my mind thinks. I built my business. So I started at Remax. I mean, let's just kind of go through the little quick thing real quick. That's where I started. And then I got recruited by Sotheby's. And that's when I kind of thought like, hey, I got brought up to the big leagues. I considered Remax the minor leagues. I consider Sotheby's kind of the big leagues. And it was a moment for me for sure. And I was their number one agent at the Sotheby's office in Breck overall as a single agent. And that's where I met my partner, Tom. And, to your point, like I do think I needed a rock and I didn't realize it. And I think that probably was my now ex. And I'll give her credit for it because she was amazing. I mean, she really did dedicate her life to me at one point, and
Yeah.
it was a special moment. Um, but when I met my business partner, Tom Day, I knew right then and there, and that's when my mom was kind of taking a turn for the worse, that I needed to build something. And this is where it's crazy to me because I didn't know I could do this. And I literally built this business, built this team, the Day Palazola group, literally because I knew my mother was dying, if that makes sense to you, because I knew that I wanted to step away. I mean, it's crazy
Yeah.
to think. So, I mean, I built it knowing that Tom was one of the first real estate agents in Breck, sold the first $1 million house in Breckenridge. Um, Old school, real Western cowboy guy, real down to earth. He's in his mid late 60s now. And it's a crazy story because the way I describe Tom is he's done well. He sold real estate here for 33 years. But he was coasting when I met him and he was going into retirement. I mean, a lot of people will tell you that and he'll tell you that.
Yeah.
And the way I describe him is, he won his 2 or 3 Super Bowl rings and I brought him out of retirement. I mean, we've made more money together than he's made in his career. Um, and it's been a very special bond and a special relationship because we are so different. He's very old school. He's like the mayor of Breck. He knows everything in Breckenridge. I'm the new, young, hungry guy who came out of nowhere, right? Took market share in literally 2 years. And it's a small sandbox here. I mean, we've got 700 agents in this little little community. It's
Wow.
unbelievable. Yeah, little ski resort town. You got 700 licensed agents. Um, but anyways, I built all this, guys, knowing that I would step away. If you can like relate to that somehow.
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of people will just tumble and not build something and then just disappear. And, I didn't do that. So I built the team with Tom at Sotheby's. At that point, Sotheby's was not encouraging teams, which is crazy to think in itself. But we were one of the first true teams in the Breckenridge office because Sotheby's, is all franchise
Yeah.
owned. So this was the Live franchise of Sotheby's. And it's crazy. I can go all down that too, because the owner of that never even knew me, and I was his top 10 agent out of 400 agents in less than 15 months, which is crazy. But anyways, so we started a team. They didn't like it, and no BS. We actually went down the road of Compass. So Robert Revkin, the owner CEO of Compass, reached out to me. I was in negotiations with him, and unbelievable story. I mean, at this point, I don't mind telling it because it's been, a couple years now and, it's water under the bridge, but no joke. I signed a contract with Compass. I mean, I could tell you this crazy story. The managing broker of Sotheby's came over to my house and fired me and Tom on the spot because he heard through the grapevine that we were leaving to go to Compass. I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, I've been with 5 brokerages, guys, in 5-6 years. It's been 6 years this fall, and I've been with 5 companies. So, take that for what you want, but find your fit, right, and never give up. That's the main message there. But so literally, we had about 75-80 million in active listings with Sotheby's at that point, Tom and I, and like 2 agents we had on the team that we formed. And at that point, Compass was coming to us. We were going to be the founders of Compass Breckenridge, founders of Compass Summit County. It was their first office up there. And it was a really cool thing. I mean, they bought us. I mean, how the structure worked. They buy
Yeah.
agents, and they made us a bonus structure. They were going to pay for all this and do all this. So I went to, I mean, it's a crazy story that I really want people to know, but I went to every single listing of mine, every single client and seller, and said, okay, hey guys, we're going to leave Sotheby's, this old, been around for 100 years, and we're going to go to this new technology called Compass. It's this great new brand. And we're going to be the founders of it. And of course, and I want and the underlining message of this is, guys, always know you're your own brand, right? Your client knows that, and I feel like I know that, right? I mean,
Yeah.
obviously you can be with a great real estate company and a great, image, but at the end of the day, it's who you are, right? And I've learned that so many times. So I went to every single client and said, "Hey guys, we're going to Compass now. It's this great thing," because my old managing broker made them write an email releasing the listing, saying that they wanted to go with Bo and Compass. So, anyways, it's Mother's Day weekend. I flew my mother down to Florida. I mean, this is like gives me chills saying it again. I took her back to Florida to see it, where we grew up, before she died. And I mean, to be honest with you, it was her last trip home. And it was Mother's Day weekend. So it's crazy because it's Mother's Day weekend this weekend, and we're having this
Wow.
conversation.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of crazy. So it would have been what, 3 years ago? It would have been three years ago this Sunday. This
Wow.
conversation happened. And the HR, we were 100% Compass. We took everything off the MLS. So think about this, guys. We were basically inactive, okay, for about 2 weeks, about 10 days to relaunch for Compass. We had this huge PR thing ready to go. We were going to roll out the red carpet, do all the advertising, marketing, all that stuff to be the new founders of this new market, right? And unbelievable. So the Friday before, so today is Friday. So today, 3 years ago today, this is unbelievable. We're having this conversation. Um, Robert Refkin himself calls me and says, "We're pulling out," and says, we can't go. We can't go with you. You're not a cultural fit. That was the word they used, cultural fit. I immediately knew it was an HR. So he hung up very short. "I'm so sorry for everything." And then I immediately called back, no response, no answer, no text back, dead. So I get a call from HR, and they kept saying, "You're not a cultural fit. You're not a cultural fit." They said it 15 times. I'm like, what in the hell? So at this point, I thought immediate blackmail or sabotage. I mean, it's unbelievable. And
Yeah.
so I remember my mom is sitting up and having a great time. She's bald now, weighs probably 90 pounds. She died with bone cancer, so she ended up having like 15 broken bones in her body, which is crazy. But she's never lost her smile. That's the crazy thing. And she's just sitting there smiling, like everything's all perfect. And I just totally fucked up potentially, and could have honestly right there could have been the end of my real estate career. And I sucked it up. I put a smile on my face and I said, "Let's go to the beach, Mom." And I was able to interact with her for a little bit, get her out. And then I remember this like seriously because it was crazy. It happened today, 3 years ago. I put her to bed for her nap, and I went down to the beach, and I sat there by myself and I reflected for like 2 hours. And I was like, "Bo, what did you do? Did you do anything wrong?" And I know for a fact I didn't do anything wrong. I've never done anything unethical. I've always been for my clients. I've always been a good person. I'm a good heart. I know that. And I want to help people. So I knew it was sabotage. And at that point, obviously I've called Tom several times. He's freaking the hell out, not knowing what to do. He's like, "Do we go back to Sotheby's?" And then this is the craziest thing. So the managing broker fired both of us, remember, of Sotheby's.
Yeah.
He heard that Compass pulled the plug on us. He tries to recruit Tom back and not me to separate us. The drama goes on and on, right? So obviously
Yeah.
Tom's like, "No, no, I'm staying with Bo. He's my guy. We do everything together." So no bullshit. I can't make this up. I'm sitting down there on the beach while my mom's up sleeping. And on the fucking whim, I create Day Palazola Group LLC, and we start Day Palazola Group Real Estate. And I sit down there and I call all my clients because these are all my listings. Tom, I mean, it knows that I'm the brute force here. I'm the listing guru.
Yeah.
I'm the one leading the pack. So obviously he's in the background. He's just obviously giving me his moral support all he can, right? But he is stressing the fuck out because now basically we're shit out of luck. I mean, we're up creek with no paddle. I mean, we've got nothing to do. We're literally in the middle of the ocean on our own here. So Compass, I convinced them to give me 48 hours before they release my license to start a company. I mean, this is a crazy story, and I want this in my book one day, and I want this to truly help people. So I'm sitting on the beach, and no joke, we form Bo Palazola Group LLC, and we start the company right there. And I call all my clients that I just called a couple weeks ago and said, hey, get ready for this amazing launch. We're going with Compass. It's the best technology in the world. It's this new tech hip thing. Get ready. I call them all and say, hey guys, I just want to let y'all know we've put some serious thought into this, and we don't think that Compass is the best decision. We think that it's too big, too tech. We're actually going to start our own brokerage, the Bo Palazola Group, and this is the best case scenario for all of us. And I guarantee you, all of them signed up, and all of them said, I don't care if you start Bo Real Estate, I will be your first listing. And that was a powerful light bulb moment for me, man, that I
Yeah.
truly know I'm meant to do this. So we launched our company with about 70 million in active listings. And what the craziest thing is, man, and I can't make this up, we started it in 24 hours. In a Mother's Day weekend 3 years ago, we started the company, and then since then I've merged with Nest Seekers. I'll tell you next. But what the craziest story is I want people to know is not even a week into owning our own company, our own real estate company, I got the listing, and it was not with Compass or Sotheby's at that time. I've been working with this guy for a couple months, building and courting the relationship. So no, it takes time. You know that. It can take a year. It can take 2 years. But I got the listing for the most expensive listing ever in the history of Breckenridge a week into owning my own real estate company. And it wasn't with Compass. It wasn't with big Sotheby's. It was with little old Bo Palazola Group. And what's crazy is, man, I sold that house in 5 days, 17 million cash, sold it in 5 days. And then not even a week after that, my partner Tom got a listing for the highest price land ever in the history of Breckenridge, and we sold that at 15 million. So we broke both records within a month under our own brokerage. It was unbelievable PR.
That's
I mean, you
amazing.
can't make this
Yeah.
up. It was
That's
pretty
amazing.
powerful.
And now you since then you've been crushing it. You moved over to partner with Nest Seekers. You're with Nest Seekers now. You run the office over there in Breck. What's next for you?
Man, honestly, just expansion and growth. I want to build teams in micro niche vacation markets. So we're moving into Vail and Aspen. We're in Steamboat Springs, obviously Breckenridge, Copper, Keystone, all of Summit County. I'm, ultimately looking to get into development, but right now I want to focus on very high-end residential vacation market real estate. So I want to keep into our main feeder markets that connect the beach to the mountains. So, I'd love to have teams in Miami, Palm Beach, Naples, the Gulf Coast of Florida, the Hamptons, niche pocket markets along the East Coast, Hilton Head, South Carolina, those areas. And then some strategic niche markets like, out with you. I mean, I'd love to, team up, potentially with y'all and do some big stuff too. But ultimately, I want to go where the markets connect. So our clients that have the beach house have the ski houses. We fly them in private. We broker the deals all in house, and then we fly them back to their primary residences.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. I love the vision. I love the story. I appreciate understanding really how you got to where you're at. And I really think that so many people are going to gain a lot of value from this conversation. So I appreciate you being on today. Thank you so much. Now, where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
I mean, the best way is just Instagram, just Breck Realty, BRECK Realty. Or, drop me an email, bo@nestseekers.com. But really just through my social media pages is the best way. Just
I
shoot me.
love that.
Yeah.
Yeah, killer. So connect with Breck, with Breck, connect with Bo on social media, and we'll keep growing. Appreciate you. Thank you so much for being on, brother.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you. Love it. Have a great day. Thanks so much.
Thanks, man.
See ya.